Mr. Barnes, welcome to Community Champions. The first thing I'd like to do is introduce these ladies that are with you. We have Jane Carwell, the GED examiner, and we have Jeannie Dumas, the GED instructor. Mr. Barnes, I want to congratulate you on coming back to school and getting this degree. I want you to tell me what made you decide you wanted to come back and get this GED degree.
To begin with, it was my daughter's idea. So she thought I could do it, so I just decided I'd try it.
Well, you know, that is just fantastic. I think that sets such a great example for others. There are people out there who think they can't do it. I don't believe there's anybody out there who can't do it. Do you?
That can't do it, you say?
That's right. I don't think, if you can do it, anybody can do it, don't you think?
Yes. Most average people could do it, sure.
That's great. Now, tell me some of the challenges you had as you went through this program.
Well, the poor eyesight was the worst challenge I had, and then not being able to hear too well, but I did quite well with that. So, and then just the challenge of getting back and forth and having somebody with my wife.
Well, I know that these ladies were there to help you as you went along. Jeannie, tell us a little bit about how you were able to assist Mr. Barnes in the program.
Well, when Mr. Barnes came in, we were not sure whether he would be able to handle 5 different GED tests, and so we started with probably the one that he could do the best on, the social studies, and he was just able to zoom right through that practice test and went right on up through the math, and probably writing the essay was the hardest thing. But he just dictated to me on how to milk a cow and how to preserve the milk and churn the butter, and that was his first essay for me.
Well, that is great. Now, you mentioned the social studies, and I think I read in the article in the paper that so many of those things that were talked about you had lived through, right?
Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah. I've milked a many a cow.
Yeah.
Plowed a many a mule, and done all those things. I was raised on a farm until I was 15, and then did some farming otherwise other places.
Okay. What did you do for your occupation?
Mostly I was an appliance serviceman here in LaGrange.
Okay. And I believe you told me that you came to LaGrange in 1952, is that right?
That's right.
Now, did you have your own business?
No, I farmed first when I came here for about 7 years or so, and then I worked for an appliance store company here in town for 4 years, and then I got a place of my own and went on my own on the appliance work, and did appliance service and bought and sold used appliances and stuff.
That is just great. Now, I read in the article in the paper that you failed Latin. Tell me about that Latin course.
Well, in Latin or English?
Well, however you want to tell us.
It'll have to be English. Well, to begin with, right during the Depression, and if you had a job, you had to do it and stay with it. So I didn't have enough time or didn't use it well enough to pass the Latin test, and I was supposed to make it up in the summer in a class, but the teacher didn't have enough students to do it to justify her teaching it through the summer, so I didn't get to do it then, and then I never did do it.
So you just took a long recess, is that right?
That's about it, yes, sir.
Now, I know that your wife was mentioned in there. Tell me a little bit about your wife. I know y'all have a great relationship. Tell me a little bit about her.
Well, she was raised just about like I was. She's from Oklahoma. And they did farming, a lot of different things there. and they went to California in 1929. I went there in 28. So we met in California and married there, and we lived there until 52.
Mm-hmm.
So
And now, how long have you been married?
it's 71 years.
71 years. That is great.
July 1st to be 72.
And how many children do you have?
2,
2 children.
yes.
That is great. Now, I read in the article in the paper that you said you'd spent a lot of time waiting on your wife. Is that true?
Didn't we all?
I think we do, and that's why I wanted to get that in this interview. I wanted my wife to hear that.
I just told a friend at one time, and 2 or 3 others around, that we were waiting on my wife for something, and I told them, I said, if I had back all the time that I'd waited on her, I wouldn't be but 45 years old.
I think that's right, and maybe if I start early enough, I can not get too much older, because if I took all the time I waited on my wife, I'd be in the same position. Jane, tell us a little bit about your role and your assistance to Mr. Barnes as he began to get ready to take the test.
Okay, I'm the GED examiner, and it's my responsibility to give the test. Mr. Barnes, because of his eyesight, could get a special accommodations for the testing based upon what his doctor said. His doctor asked for extended time so we could take double the amount of time to take the test, because it took a while. He listened to an audio cassette, and we'd listen to one question and the answers, and I'd turn it off, and he'd think it through. He would tell me the answer, and I would write it down. And he did real well on it. It took a little time, a little longer time, but we had that time, so we were okay. He had to dictate the essay to me, as Jeannie had mentioned. He didn't know his topic until that day when I read it to him and told him what his topic was. And then he had to, we did a little scratch paper, and he had to write down his essay on that. And then I read it back to him, and we had to make it correct and do whatever he said to do. I just did whatever he told me to do. And so that's how we got through it. He did real well. I can score the test in my office, so as soon as he tested everything but the writing, we would score the test, and he'd know right then that he'd passed, and we'd call his daughter and say, "You can come get him now, Joyce. He's passed this one too." So it was a really good experience for me. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
And what time frame was it? How long did it take him to complete the program?
Well, it took, he had double time. So for a 2-hour test, which the writing is, he had 4 hours. And the other tests, all of them are over an hour, but he just doubled the time for all of them. On the math, he had a portion with a calculator and a portion without a calculator. But he couldn't see the calculator that we had, so he did it in his head.
That's amazing.
It was. I was thoroughly amazed with that one.
Well, Mr. Barnes, tell me what you enjoyed the most about taking those courses.
Just to realize that I could really do it again. And all the association with such wonderful people that it made it easier. So it was a joyful period all the way through.
Well, tell me what you think about all this attention that you've gotten. I understand that this story's been picked up all over the country about you finishing this up. What do you think about everybody just, looking at you and say, "Hey, look what he did"?
Well, it's certainly a surprise to me also. So I never expected it to happen to me.
Well, you worked hard, and you obviously earned that right to be considered the oldest person to get that particular diploma, and we're very proud of you. Jeannie, tell us a little bit about again your help with the program, and what is the oldest student you'd had before Mr. Barnes?
I think the oldest I had went through graduation last June, and she was in her early 70s. And that's the oldest.
Just a child,
right. And when Mr. Barnes came along, and we thought, well, actually, when we got the first phone call, we understood him to be 93. And I thought, well, I'm not sure we can do this. And as it turned out, Mr. Barnes, 96 years young, his daughter brought him in, and again, I thought this is really a challenge. I mean, you can't see, and so everything's going to have to be done orally. But we believe in miracles, don't we, Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Yeah, so we just consider this to be something that the Lord's just blessed him with such a keen memory, and he's just been a wonderful student, so cooperative. I mean, he was willing to drink cold coffee. We had a wonderful time when he would come in. Of course, we had to work one-on-one when there were no other students in the classroom. And we would just take one test at the time and talk about it, what it was going to be like when the real test was administered. Mm-hmm. And he took the practice test, and on almost every question or two, I got a little past history. He would give me a little bit of his background, and so I got to know Mr. Barnes and his daughter, Miss Joyce, quite well. And I guess we worked from about August, sometime in August, I believe it was, until October. And we'd just work a little bit each week. He would come in a couple of times, 3 times a week, and we'd just work together. And it was such a pleasure to have a real gentleman to work with.
A real gentleman, a real Southern gentleman who
Absolutely
had a goal in mind and he wanted to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
That is just amazing, and again, I know it's got to be an inspiration to others. What would you say to some of those young people out there maybe who haven't done what you've done? What would you tell them?
Just keep on. When the time comes you can do it, why, then do it. But it took me 96 years to get my diploma. So you don't have to be that slow if you really apply yourself.
Well, you just, like you said, though, you just took a long recess, right?
I took a long recess, yes.
That is great, and I hope that anyone out there that may be watching this show and thinking about that will just think about that you're obviously never too old to learn something, and the picture, I think that Kevin Kane said that you're just the ideal picture of the one who just never stops learning.
That's been my goal all the way, even on television and everything. When something of interest, I try to remember, and the geography, the places what's mentioned in the news and stuff, I try to remember and improve my education on the geography part of it. So you just pay attention, and there's so much out there to get that you can get part of it at least. So that's been my goal all the way through.
Well, that is just fantastic. We've got to wrap up our show now, but again, I want to say how much I appreciate you being on with us and how much I admire what you've done. Jane and Jeannie, y'all have just done a fantastic job. Mr. Barnes, I want to thank you for being with us again today. You've just made a tremendous accomplishment, and I hope to see you again when you graduate from college. We'll do another show, okay?
Right.
My guest has been Mr. Thurman Barnes, and also we've had Jane Carwell and Jeannie Dumas on. Mr. Barnes is believed to be the oldest student to earn a GED diploma.